with Nell St. John.
Thanks to our sponsor, CC Motor Coffee Company. Visit their Portland, Oregon location at 1642 Northeast Sandy Boulevard. Welcome to the Midnight Smiles. This is my special Halloween edition. And I have a very special guest with me. I have two of the founding members of a fairly new Portland band called Morrison Graves. We're going to play some of their music and ask them some questions about the band. I'll just go ahead and start off. So why don't you guys just go ahead and introduce yourself one at a time and just kind of say how you guys got the band first started and how long it's been around and things like that.
Yeah, okay. Well, my name is Gary Jimerson. I guess you could say that I'm kind of the founding person of the group overall. I play now in the band. Now that we're a live entity, I play guitar, keyboards, and those sorts of things. But on the record, I actually play the majority of the instruments. I play the drums, all the percussion, and everything. And the reason for that is this band started as a project of mine. I went to become a veterinarian. And when I graduated school, I was living in Corvallis, where I still live, and was incredibly bored down there because there's not a whole lot of Ethiopian restaurants and nightlife and music venues. And I was just bored out of my mind down there. And music was my thing before I went to school. So I just started playing music again by myself. But I have this huge network of wonderful musicians from Portland. And I set out, let's just make an album and just involve my friends in it. And let's just go into the studio and let's just make it a thing. And so I just wrote all these demos, and I recruited Ryan, who you'll meet here in a second, my best friend from high school, who is an incredible vocalist, to come in and do vocals. And then Rob, who is our bass player, is primarily a recording engineer for his work. And so I recruited him to play bass, and he's brought the songs to a whole new level once he put his bass parts on there. And then we just spent months in his recording studio together, just hammering it out. I was primarily a drummer and learned how to play guitar for this band and just put all these songs together. And so it just sheer boredom of living in a town that's not as even remotely on the map like Portland for fun things to do for somebody who likes music. So I just had to get back to it, and this is where we are. So, yeah.
It was in the middle of the pandemic too, right? When you wrote everything.
Yeah, it was.
So we kind of all buttoned up in our homes, and it seems pretty appropriate to write an album during the pandemic.
Yeah, that was a big creative time period for a lot of people. It's about every interview I've done so far with the Midnight Smiles, somebody had a great, creative wave that happened during the pandemic because there wasn't much else to do. So, So go ahead and introduce yourself and say how you first got in the band. I know you guys have been friends since high school. So just talk about how the band came about. What would you say you guys' biggest musical influences are that really led to your songwriting and the sound you guys have?
Who are you, by the way?
I'm Brian Brown. Gary and I, like Gary said, we've been best friends since high school, and I think my first memory of Gary was going over. We used to skateboard together, and I remember the first time I went over to Gary's house and went into his bedroom, and he had a drum set in his room, and I grew up playing classical piano and singing in choirs and stuff. So going over to Gary's house and hearing him play the drums, I was like, oh my God. That was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. We were kind of big in the punk rock scene in high school. We were both skateboarders, and we're really into that.
What was your guys' hometown? Where were you from?
Great Falls, Montana.
Okay,
Much happening except beyond going to the shows at the fair. There wasn't many shows, so
Gary. Garth Brooks was my first show because that's all that would come to Montana, right?
Oh, yeah.
I saw Joan Jett in the Black Dog. That was my first show at the Great Falls County Fair.
So you had friends in low places.
Yeah,
exactly.
So. Whiskey drowns. It's true.
But then one thing I want to say, too, is this is a very special location, too, because this is our Halloween episode, and we're here in Lone Fir Cemetery, which originally was a family farm, but was established as Lone Fir Cemetery in 1855. The oldest cemetery in the city, has a lot of notable burials from famous people that really formed the town. And then also on your album cover, but this is the first album, there's a really special building which has been here since early 1870s sometimes from my research, but it's called Maclay Mausoleum. And actually it was Donald Maclay built this for his wife who died in childbirth. And now I think there's something like 8 souls that are interned in Maclay Mausoleum, but we're right here in front of it, and we're right into the spooky season. And what really led for that inspiration too, because the name Morrison Graves is a reference to Lone Fir Cemetery, correct?
Yeah, we're named after this cemetery indeed, yeah.
Yeah, we are not named after the Doors, which is a misconception, but yeah. Very much for this spot that we're in right now. I mean, another reason for the album and the whole band is we wanted to make something that actually was a little bit of what we were thinking about and processing at the time. I mean, like, this community is experiencing gentrification and homelessness, and so much shift and change has happened in this city and all across America in the cities at the same time. And Rob and some friends live in this neighborhood right by it, which has had some major shifts and changes that have happened in years. And so we were just talking one night about how we wanted to make something that was kind of an homage to old Portland. And so this cemetery, as you mentioned, is kind of a founding cemetery of the city. And so it's kind of the laid arrest grounds for what old Portland used to be. And
I'll throw in a little fact about Portland is that really the town was established, in what they call the Old Town area. Mm-hmm. And nobody really lived on the east side for about maybe at least 30 or so, 40 years. But then there was kind of a big population boom that happened around 1870, 1880. Yeah. And the population of the town, partly because of the work that was here, with the logging and the fishing and things like that, and just kind of the town growing. The population of the town tripled, and then people started to live on either side of the river. So, this was actually a family farm at first, and then the first burial was actually the father of the couple that owned the farm. And if you go to Block 1, which is on the far kind of, I guess that would be northwest corner of Lone Fir, you can find all of their graves there,
Okay.
So, but tell me about the sound of your band when it comes to influences, as far as like who really created your sound. Like, are there any particular bands that pop out too? And this is our Halloween episode too, so
sure.
Get as dark as you want.
I mean, I have a giant list of bands that influenced me writing these demos, but I mean, I think more current bands, or the Black Angels, are a giant influence to me and both Ryan. I mean, that's a band that, we have things that we listen to differently, but the common grounds, like the Black Angels, are major influences to both of us. I listen to a lot of the modern psych rock, a band called Temples, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, all that sort of stuff was I just love the kind of droney, simple but energetic push that those bands have, but then drawing a lot of influence from a lot of my favorite music era is the late 60s. I think all the fuzz rock and garage rock and some of the psychedelic stuff that was happening back then was major influences. And when I was first writing this music, I was deep diving into that stuff. Bands like the band called The Litter. There's a band from France called Les Problemes, which has one record that's half garbage and half of it is some of the best songs I've ever heard. That's just a deep dive from back in that era, and I was just pulling from all of that stuff and just being I like that fuzz guitar sound, or I like this chord progression, or just trying to pull all of that stuff together. And I was trying to teach myself how to play guitar, so I was trying to just pull in from all that stuff. But
how about you? What were your biggest influences growing up, or what you really put into the music now? Because you being kind of the official front man of the band, you kind of carry that image on your shoulders too. So,
well, I grew up listening to my dad's records. That was my first musical. We didn't listen to the radio at all. So I grew up without a television, so I was very removed from kind of current music and pop culture and such. So for some reason, my dad's records were my access point, and I remember the first music that really affected me was the Beatles, and my dad would just rant and rave about the Beatles and he was really into talking to me about the songs and the lyrics and what they meant. And I remember just being just kind of at awe of the musical evolution of the Beatles, being this kind of pop boy band, really heavily influenced in the 60s by taking psychedelics and all of the Eastern influences that came in. And I think that's a pretty big part of our sound is psychedelia and all of those things that were inspiring all of those people's like expansion of the mind and looking at the internal landscape and just what was happening socially and politically. I think that we both drew a lot of influences from that, like Gary was saying, the late 60s, where music really was about very different than today, it seems, in a popular context where there was such an atmosphere of people in evolution and examining social issues with the Vietnam War happening. And so I think that was probably the thing that influenced me most. Yeah, Beatles, Zeppelin, listened to a lot of Cat Stevens. All those bands were highly influential to me. Vocally,
and you guys have had, 3-4 live shows now, right? Three live shows, okay.
We're babies.
Yeah, that's why I say it's always like to catch people early, and just introduce people to new music too, because, I think that, Portland's really known for having a music scene, but it's really tough to get out and see everything, especially newer acts and things like that, because people tend to go, with their friends to the stuff they've heard of or the big headliners that come through town. Well, I've had several listens of your first album, and I really love kind of the dark, spooky sound going on. And it's just like something that I picked my few favorite songs, and I went online and looked at like what I could find out about you guys if I had just seen a sticker or something like that, and I happened to catch it's actually the first song on the track, and I don't know, maybe it's the first video too, but it's the song Crane Song.
The blow inside, compounding. The glow outside devours me. The blow inside, compounding. The glow outside devours me.
I saw the video for that, and pretty cool, shot in Portland, a couple of young actors, some skateboarding going on, so you guys have those kind of skateboarding routes. But then one thing I happened to notice at the end of it is that there was a 1-800 number for runaways. Mm-hmm. And I just want to ask you guys about, what does that have a special message for you? Or is there something that you've experienced in your growing up where you really thought you would try to provide help for people like runaways, like young teenage runaways? Because we kind of get that from the video, so definitely go check out the video. You can find it on YouTube and stuff. But so what was the reason for that?
That song actually, that song specifically is kind of our homage to Portland. That song's directly about Portland and what's happening here. And we had made a little other music video that we haven't released yet, where we had done a little shoot, and it kind of ended up being it was a song about homelessness, and there was a lot of shots that ended up being in the show of a guy that had worked for Street Roots, and we had kind of a placard at the end of that kind of talking about Street Roots. But this specific song, the placard at the end, I would say that's more attributed to the filmmaking team. They please go watch the video online. It's for those that haven't seen it, it's amazing done. What's the name of their
John
company?
Garcia and Lake Productions.
Oh, okay.
He came up with
Did they cast the video too?
Yeah,
with
they
two
did.
young actors?
John actually
okay.
wrote the storyline as well.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I just
that-
saw it the other day, and I was just like, "Oh, there's some messages going on here for sure."
Yeah.
And something that I always like to throw in little factoids about myself is that, I grew up in Portland, kind of more of the suburbs of Beaverton. I was born in Northeast Portland, and I'm the rare fifth, possibly sixth generation Portland resident. I actually have some relatives in Lone Fir who died in the 1890s. So a lot of Scandinavian immigrants that lived in Portland back then. But then, bringing it back into that, just one of those things to where, it was kind of cool to see the different scenes of the city and, stuff like that. And just having a filmmaking background myself too, and having worked in LA, and, I thought that was cool because I was like, oh, this is like yet another layer of art going on with the band.
Yeah.
So.
And I think Matt, who was involved and did a lot of the editing for that, actually works with a lot of youth in the community and a lot of them that are going through some transitions. And there is a lot of runaway and at-risk that is involved in his life and his day-to-day endeavor. And so he was very much a part of the editing and the story writing. And so that placard at the end is very much like when he put that in there for us, it was like, oh, this is the most brilliant thing that we could end this with. And it was all these people pulling together to tell our story about the broken part of just the world we live in right now, whether that's Portland or the youth of whatever city or whatever transition people are going through. And it was brilliant when that came on there. So that's all. You're right. But thanks for bringing that up, Ryan. That's all those guys. They did it.
Yeah.
Well, I just think that's cool when a band has, kind of a focus on some social issues too, just because, I know so many different musicians, and I know some of those people really just kind of it's kind of a me world, where they kind of focus on themselves and their own indulgence. But, when I see people putting a broader message out, that's always really inspiring to me. Here we are, literally at dusk. It's getting dark in Lone Fir Cemetery. It's almost Halloween, and I really had to decide on Ghost Town as being my favorite track on it, just because it kind of has that twangy kind of Western inspired sound.
Is anybody left here for sale? Sale. What's the cost?
Talk a little bit about what that song is about and what kind of mood you wanted to put into it as an artist.
Yeah, I think that one I refer to as our Pink Floyd song. It's all about Rob's nasty bass line with some phasing going on it musically, but lyrically and the content of it, we actually it was, I think, one of the last songs that we wrote lyrics to, right? And it kind of was decided on that it was going to be towards the more instrumental half of the album. So we decided just to kind of let it breathe and be this more instrumental, kind of westerny song. But the lyrical content is more about, again, just like the concept of gentrification and displacement and thinking that you belong in a community and going somewhere that you might recognize from years past, but going there and not knowing if you're allowed to be there anymore. You know, your apartment complex gets torn down and there's a new big shiny building in there and there's a coffee shop in the basement and you used to be poor in this neighborhood. Can you go in there and have coffee anymore? You know, it's just about change and how when there's change, usually the old gets pushed out and then you're left wondering if you can still participate in what's happening there now.
What are you guys going to do for Halloween? Are you guys going to parties? Do you have a show plan, something like that, or anything? Are you still going to be on tour, or are you just going to be back by then?
We'll be back by then.
We'll be back, yeah. I unfortunately work. I'll be saving animals.
That's cool. You're a veterinarian. Like, who do you work with, if you don't mind me asking?
Like company-wise, or I work with small animals, so cats and dogs.
Oh, cats and dogs.
Yeah.
So,
I'm an emergency veterinarian, so I see I see a lot of chaos. I see a lot of trauma. I see a lot of death. You know. So I have constant daily talks with myself about what it is. Like, I mean, I don't see cats and dogs as any different than humans in terms of the spirits that we have and the amount that we can contribute to the waking life and everything there. And I see a lot of animals pass over in all different sort of circumstances. And so death is very much a daily part of my life and a very, very real thing every day that I
get that. I get that. Having a little bit of a medical background myself, you know, it's kind of a reminder of what you are going to be faced with, you know, as you go further into that field.
Yeah.
What about you guys? As far as, do you guys have a favorite track on the album or anything like that? Or is there like...
Yeah, I'd say Crane Song is my favorite song of all the songs.
Yeah, I found three or four of the tracks are really
Crane Song and
great.
Occupation are probably my top two.
Yeah.
That song is about, like, running through the lyrics in my head right now.
Do you want to read your own lyrics?
Essentially about not being in control of your own environment, somebody else pulling the strings above you, and you know, it's again, it has more to do, I think, with the gentrification and the building of skyscrapers and the people that are in control of the bigger shift that happens in the city, and they're occupying and telling us that these are the things that are for the better, and they're selling it to us as our salvation. Hey, come in here. We're gonna bulldoze these streets. We're gonna tear down these old buildings, and we're gonna put in something so more people can move in. And it's a big, beautiful structure, and it's for your own benefit. But is it really for the better benefit of the community and the neighborhoods that those are happening in? Yeah,
that's awesome. So, so what do you think is coming up next for you guys? Do you guys have new songs you're writing right now, or are you just rolling on to the next second album? Right?
Yep, we're in the writing process right now.
Yeah.
How many songs you got down on the new one?
nothing down. We have one song that's, I would say, 95% there. And then we have quite a few others in the mix right now as well. We're really excited about it.
And you guys have what? Is it 5 people in the band?
Yeah.
5 of us.
So how did the other members come into the fold and everything? And like, because I know you've only had a few shows and you guys are a brand new group to the Portland scene, but I happen to know one of your members from other contexts, Aura, one of the guitar players. And I'm just kind of curious about how your cast came together.
Yeah, as Gary was saying, he wrote the album and kind of approached me to sing some vocals on it. And originally I was just going to do 2 or 3 songs, and it was kind of going to be more of a larger collaborative effort by people that Gary had worked with over the years. And as is common with musicians and people collaborating with, a lot of people said they were going to do it and ended up not doing it. So it went from 2 songs to 3 songs to 4 songs to all of a sudden I was singing on the whole album, and Rob was doing all of the recording engineering stuff and writing the bass line. So the project as a whole was just a studio album at first, and after we released the album, it seemed like people really dug it, and so we're like, well, maybe we should put a band together from this. So Rob, since he'd recorded the bass, was all on board, and a good friend of Rob's from growing up, kind of similar to Gary and me growing up together, the drummer Joey, him and Rob have been friends since essentially middle school. Their moms grew up together, so the 4 of us kind of had this kind of brotherhood thing going on, where just a lot of history and camaraderie between us over the years of collaboration. And Aura, the person our guitar player, he's kind of the wild card that we pulled in at the very end. He had heard the album and was really stoked on it, and kind of was pretty proactive in approaching us about wanting to play with us. So
Yeah, I think they were doing some recording work or some studio work with Rob at the time, and Rob and Aura had kind of a banter back and forth, and I think Aura and Rob, like Aura came to us through Rob, through his engineering work and whatnot, and we met Aura, and they were like a great match because they're so much the wild card for us. And what we mean by that is just like the amount of energy. I mean, they're a true guitar players. Like the stuff that comes out of their energy and their space over there is just something that those of us that are new to the instrument can never recreate. So it's nice to have that glue, so to speak. Yeah.
Well said. So, and one thing I want to say too, because I know that the name it's nothing to do with the Doors, but one thing I wanted to say about you as a frontman is that you do have that crooner-esque kind of poetic vibe about you.
yeah.
Like even before I had met you and knew, and like turns out you're a really like nice guy as far as I know. But
I try.
yeah,
I have my moments.
yeah. Well, just first impressions, I guess. But then I just want to say, like, do you ever get that? Do you ever get the relation to Jim Morrison?
I do now.
Yeah.
It's going to be the thing that Jim Morrison's going to be haunting our band for the time memoriam.
Hey, if we're haunted by Jim Morrison, man, we're doing really good though.
Yeah.
It's funny. After the album came out, there was a lot of people doing a Jim Morrison, saying that I sounded like Jim Morrison. And it's funny that of all the 60s bands, that's the one band my dad didn't listen to was the Doors. So I didn't grow up listening to the Doors at all.
So you're Doors-free influence.
So I'm Doors-free. But I think probably a part of that influence or that sound comes from just I sang classical music for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have that kind of, your voice carries like that. Yeah.
Skylines get higher.
was your experience doing classical music? Did you ever do, was it like opera-based?
Well, I grew up playing classical piano.
Classical piano.
And
okay.
then I was in choir and started.
How old were you when you started to play piano?
5th grade, probably.
Okay, 5th grade.
Yeah. And I sang in choirs all in high school was kind of my main thing. And my biggest influence in high school was my choir teacher. So I wanted to be like her. And I got my undergrad in music. So I studied voice and piano all through that undergrad period. And was singing in operas and musicals. So it's been something that I've actually been trying to work with and out of my voice for for years.
Is there any of your piano work on the album at all or anything?
Not on this one.
Not on this one? Okay. What about you? Like, tell me a bit about how you first got into music. Like, you talked a little bit about that, basically like kind of evolving, to like play guitar and things like that. But then I like to really go way back and, just kind of find out, where people were as kids and like, when did you, like, for me, I'm a guitar player, but I really didn't start picking it up until I was like 13. And actually it was kind of funny that my brother got a guitar for his birthday. He's a few years older than me. And he didn't really take to it. and I ended up finding it in the garage covered with dust a couple years after he got it. And just picked it up. And I remember I just, wrote my first song in a garage in Beaverton with a dusty, Montgomery Ward's guitar.
That's awesome. That's a great story. Yeah. Your brother's lost, right? And you're
It's funny because he still doesn't play an instrument to this day. Yeah. He's a really good motorcycle mechanic, but
well, I remember
music wasn't his thing. So
I got my first drum set in 1992, and leading up into that, Def Leppard's "Let's Get Rocked" was on the radio a lot, and I remember driving around with my mom and just wanting to play the air drums, and I think that was like the song that I was like, I gotta be a drummer. And so I begged my family for years, or for months. It seems like years when you're 11 and 12 years old, but I begged them for I guess weeks to months to get me a drum set. And finally, we had a garage sale, and I was able to buy a drum set and put it in my room. And I pretty much played 2 beats for 8 months, and would just jam along to Nirvana and early Metallica and Cure and stuff like that, and just played drums for off and on kind of through middle school. And then it wasn't really until I got to high school where I kind of faded off of music for a while and got really into snowboarding and skateboarding, which is when I initially met Ryan. And then we have this amazing influence in our lives, a man by the name of Seth Propios, who moved to Montana and was way into punk rock music and started booking all these punk rock bands, all these touring bands came through our hometown. And I think that was going to those shows in a small town where there's nothing going on, and seeing the amount of energy coming off of these musicians was just something that was untamable. And so that was when I started going to those shows. It's like, fuck it, I'm going to be a musician. I'm going to start playing the drums even more and more and more. And that's when it like really took off, and I began to take it seriously. Middle school, it's like all middle schoolers, you dink around on something and you're half in, you're half not, then all of a sudden you're doing something else. But it was going and seeing those house shows and those punk shows. I remember seeing a band called Carp play so loud. There were 2 bass players and a drummer, and they unscrewed the light bulb in the basement, and they kept playing. And I looked over, and my friend Willie was smashing his head on the wall, and I was just like, "This is incredible! I got to be a part of this." And I went home and started playing harder and louder.
You felt the energy for sure. That's awesome. Yeah. So
that's kind of how coming full circle back into the creation of the band. That's how Gary met Joey and Rob, the bass and drummer for the project. Is they were in a band at that time called Slackjaw, and Gary was booking all the punk rock shows, and that was one of the bands that Gary had brought down, and they absolutely loved coming to Great Falls because, like Gary said, it's one of those towns that nothing's happening. So when a band comes to Great Falls, they talked about how every time they'd come to Great Falls, all their merch would be completely gone because us little town kids were like, yes, a punk rock show.
Yeah, you guys soaked it up, because you're like, this doesn't happen very often. We're getting what we can get.
Yeah.
No, that's cool because I kind of love to find out where people came from and how you came to this spot. And I know, you just put out the first album, you're just doing your first, tour out of town and things like that, and I just wanted to wish you guys lots of luck with anything. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, and I just want to thank you guys for coming out here to this dark, spooky cemetery, and I wish you guys lots of luck with the band. And once again, I'm your host, Nell St. John, and you're listening to the Midnight Smiles, and we are signing off.